In 1796, the Qing Dynasty ruled China at its territorial peak. Under the Qianlong Emperor, it governed over 300 million people. Less than 70 years later, the same state couldn't defend its own coastline, not because it lacked power, but because it couldn't tell itself the truth.
This is Lessons Unlearned, where history makes its lessons clear and leaders choose to ignore them.
The Qing Dynasty was founded in 1644 and ruled China for nearly 3 centuries. By the late 1700s, it had one of the world's largest populations, a centralized tax system, a professional civil service chosen through imperial examinations, decades of internal peace. European observers at the time did not see a failing state. They saw a confident one. Corruption in the Qing wasn't anarchy, it was procedural. Provincial offices were bought through patronage networks. Officials recouped their investment by skimming taxes and fees. Local magistrates underreported unrest to avoid punishment. Governors inflated success to protect their careers. Some officials, especially younger reformers, pushed for change. But honesty carried risk. Silence was safer. This mattered because the Qing system depended on accurate reporting. The emperor governed through layers of bureaucracy. If information was false, decisions were wrong. Corruption produced 3 failures at once. First, bad information. Rebellions appeared smaller on paper than they were in reality. Second, bad incentives. Officials focused on revenue extraction, not stability. Third, bad leadership. Incompetence wasn't removed because removal threatened entire patronage networks. The state still had manpower, it still had money, but it no longer had clarity. Corruption doesn't break states by stealing money. It breaks them by lying to themselves. The stress test came in the 19th century. Between 1839 and 1842, the Qing fought Britain in the First Opium War. On paper, China had larger armies and fortified ports. In practice, commanders hid weaknesses. Funds meant for defense vanished, and outdated tactics went unchallenged. The result was defeat and the Treaty of Nanjing. This wasn't because Britain was unstoppable. It was because the Qing system couldn't adapt fast enough to new realities. The real crisis came from inside. In 1850, a massive civil war erupted known as the Taiping Rebellion. It was led by Hong Xiuquan, a failed exam candidate who believed he was divinely chosen to overthrow the Qing. The movement combined religious ideas with anger over corruption, taxes, and inequality. At its height, it controlled huge parts of southern China. The war lasted 14 years and killed tens of millions of people. The Qing court survived only by relying on regional armies raised by local elites. That saved the dynasty in the short term, but permanently weakened central authority. The empire wasn't conquered. It fractured. After the disasters of the Opium Wars and the Taiping Rebellion, Qing leaders understood something fundamental had gone wrong. These defeats weren't interpreted as bad luck. They were interpreted as structural failure. That realization prompted a series of reform efforts beginning in the 1860s, known collectively as the self-strengthening movement. The idea was simple: adopt Western military technology and industrial methods while preserving the existing political and social order. Reformers like Zheng Guofan and Li Hongzhang pushed for concrete changes. They built modern arsenals, shipyards, and factories. They imported Western weapons, hired foreign advisors, and sent Chinese students abroad to study engineering and science. In some areas, these reforms worked. Regional armies became more effective. New industries produced real output. China's technological gap briefly narrowed. But the reforms never transformed the system as a whole. They failed for 3 reasons. First, corruption. Funds meant for modernization were diverted or diluted. Projects existed on paper but underperformed in reality. Second, institutional resistance. The reforms threatened entrenched bureaucratic interests, so they were limited, slowed, or quietly undermined. Third, fragmentation. Because the central state was weak, most reforms were driven by regional leaders. That made short-term improvements possible, but prevented coordinated nationwide change. In other words, the Qing tried to modernize without reforming how power actually worked. From inside the system, deeper reform looked dangerous. Preserving the existing order felt safer, even as it failed. The lesson isn't about China. It's about institutions. When systems reward loyalty over accuracy, bad information rises. When insiders are protected, competence gets filtered out. And when reform becomes dangerous, stability becomes an illusion. That's when systems look strong, right up until they aren't. History does not repeat itself exactly, but when lessons go unlearned, the results tend to rhyme. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment, or subscribe to the channel so we can provide more content like this.